Hello and welcome to another Cork and Taylor Wine Podcast. Luke Taylor here back in the studio, and I am joined by a great guest. But before we welcome him to the podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, follow our YouTube page, and also we're going to do some really fun stuff on our Patreon section. If you want to support us, we'd appreciate it because no one else cares. I don't even care either. www.patreon.com/Cork and Taylor. So, second episode of the season of 2022. We have the 2020 winner of the Wine Enthusiast Wine Star Award. What I love about him, just in my research, he convinced the chairman of some department at some pretty good wine school to admit him to the doctorate program without an entrance exam. I think he's like me. He's probably full of shit. So we got Gary Eberle to the Cork and Taylor Wine Podcast.
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen?
Look, well, what happened was after Penn State, I got my bachelor's in biology, and I student taught, and I said, no, if I become a teacher and a high school football coach, I will kill someone. So I went on to graduate school. I wanted to be a marine biologist, and applied to 3 different schools. And LSU, which had a great marine biology school, but it was really marine engineering for the oil industry offshore. But anyway, I got a master's in vertebrate zoology, and I started working in genetics, published a couple of papers in scientific journals, and I was working both in Baton Rouge and in New Orleans, at Charity Hospital, which was the med school for LSU. And I completed my coursework for my doctorate. I was a National Science Fellow working. I was the golden-haired boy of the department, and one of my professors turned me on to fine wine. And I just had an epiphany. I said, I don't want to be a geneticist. I want to be an alcoholic. And I took my transcripts and went out to Professor Berg at UC Davis. And he said, well, you're obviously qualified. I mean, you've completed all your coursework. You've published papers. You're a National Science Fellow. You've published all your papers in scientific journals. He said, you're obviously qualified to be in this program. And I was admitted into a doctoral program at the UC Davis without taking a qualifying exam. Now, I'd taken a qualifying exam for my doctorate at LSU in genetics. But anyway, that's how I got to Davis in a enology program, doctoral enology program, without taking a qualifying exam.
Yeah. How's it going for you then?
It's been, I came out of Davis in May of '73 to Paso Robles. I've been here ever since. I love this town. I love the people here. I love the soil.
Well, yeah, supposedly it's okay. How did you get to Paso? I mean, you're from a small town in Pennsylvania. You went to Penn State, you went to LSU, you went to UC Davis. I mean, Paso wasn't even an AVA till 1983. Why Paso?
Yeah, well, I created the AVA, by the way.
Oh, here we go. Take all the credit.
Oh, well, actually, there were 4 of us. But
you sound like the Beatles. You're like John Lennon. Forget the other 3.
Yeah, that's it. What can I say? But when I was at Davis, my major was enology. My minor was viticulture. So I had 4 professors in the enology department and 1 in the viticulture department on my committee. Turned out I got Doc Olmo, who was head of the viticulture department, on my committee. And at that time, the university, the viticulture department, and the soil science department were doing a survey of the counties south of the Bay Area, looking for the next Napa, Sonoma, whatever. And I became their Sherpa. And we made multiple trips. I carried the shovel and the mattock and the backpack. You were the donkey. Exactly. And we made 3 trips, and I was in Paso. Doc Olmo and Dr. Alley went 2 with Doc Olmo, 1 with Doc Alley. They just loved Paso Robles. I did the weather data. There used to be a flight service station at the airport. It's about a mile from my winery. And I gathered data since like 1944, weather data. It was perfect. The soils were perfect in that they were not good soils. I mean, we have no topsoil here. We've got this 20 foot of subsoil. And I like the people. I like the town. I like being 200 miles in either direction from LA or San Francisco. And when I came out of Davis, and the other thing was, even then, Napa was, ground was going for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 an acre. And,
I'm gonna if it's still going for that, I'm gonna go buy some.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. But the first job I had, which was building the Estrella River Winery and designing and installing that 700 acres, which when after I left, it was bought by Nestle and it became Meridian. But we bought the first 160 acres on Highway 46 East with a deeded access to the highway, $50 an acre. And I said, I can afford, I'm a poor kid. I can afford to play the game in Paso Robles. I can't, even then I couldn't afford Napa. And I knew I wanted my own winery. I didn't want to just work for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, and when I bought my property 10 years later, the property I'm on right now, I paid just slightly over $3,000 an acre.
Holy cow.
For it. So I mean, I can't tell you what it's worth now, but it's worth a whole lot more than that. I mean, I've gone from a poor, graduate student to, on paper, a very wealthy person.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you've made some good life choices.
A couple bad ones, but most of them, I'm almost 78 now, a couple months away from 78. And, you look back on your life and you look at some of the decisions that you made that were just so inconsequential at the time. They were throwaway decisions. I'll do this and not that. And you recognize not having made the decision that you did, you would wind up in a completely different situation. So my life has just been sort of semi-directed, I think, by Bacchus. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I have no complaints.
Yeah.
There are a few things I would have done differently or done better, but for the most part, I recognized opportunity when it knocked.
Mm-hmm. It knocked pretty damn hard for you.
Yeah. And I took advantage of it.
Yeah.
When I saw an opportunity, I took advantage of it.
Was there ever a time where you're like, man, it's not going to work. I'm not going to make it. Was there ever a time in your earlier career that you kind of had that self-doubt a little bit?
Yeah. I tell people, when they ask me, we want to get into the wine industry and what advice do I have? I say, make sure that you have some income that you can live off of for approximately 10 years, because you are going to feed your business for 10 years. If you survive, it's great. But in 1990-91, my winery was 7 years old. And I remember distinctly on 3 different times, 2 months back to back, I had to borrow money on my credit card to make payroll. Mm-hmm. And my wife was just, she thought we were going to debtor's prison. And I said, no, they don't have those anymore. Well,
the prison's actually pretty good because at least you get 3 meals a day.
Yeah. If we're going to lose her, I said, what do we've got? A couple of old cars, some hand-me-down furniture. But I knew all I had to do was get over a hump. And I knew I could see what the winery was doing, what the brand was doing, and I said, I'll make it. And that's probably the worst time. I mean, I was having a hard time sleeping. It was about a 4-month period. And when you got to borrow money on credit card to make payroll,
that's bad.
Pretty stiff.
Yeah. So two questions I got for you. Well, I've got multiple questions for you, but the two kind of pressing ones. So you started Eberle in the late 70s, I believe.
Yeah, well, I knew I was still at Estrella
Okay.
River, Estrella,
Right. Right.
as winemaker there, and I knew I was going to be leaving, and I had about 2% ownership in sweat equity. Well, some hard equity. Actually, it was about 2.4%. And I went to the owner's general partner, and I said, "Look, this was in 1981, and I left right after Crush in '82. I think it was February or March." And I said, "Look, instead of you guys paying me," and they didn't want to. They were, their wineries early on, cash poor. I said, "Look, let me take some of my wine that I made. I'll buy the bottles, I'll buy the corks, I'll buy the foils, I'll do the labels, and let me take my equity position out in some 79 and 80 Cabernet and 80 and 81 Chardonnay." They said, "Great," because they were starting to back up a little bit, and I was helping them out.
Right.
And so that when I opened my winery, or actually even before, because this was '82, I didn't build the winery until '83. I started promoting my wine, and I was paying. I mean, they were taking out a case of wine with my label and everything on it, and they were debiting me $18. Well, I took that same case of wine and I started going to wholesalers that I knew, that I'd been working with for the previous 8 or 9 years all over. And I sold it for $60 a case, wholesale to the wholesalers. And that's where I got the money, along with multiple partners, 18, I'm down to 2 now, and a large mortgage. But that was where I got my grub stake to start Eberle Winery.
So did you pay these original 16 partners off, or you kill them off?
No. In fact, I just bought one. I had 3 partners just not too long ago, and I bought a partner out, and he got, besides the money they've gotten in between, 6 times what he bought into.
Yeah.
So it's a good investment.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you some sweat. I'll give you some sweat if you want to give me some partnership. I can really sweat. I'm a big boy.
Yeah.
So how did you decide what to plant back then when you first had the vineyards? So, I mean, you make you've got Chardonnay, you got Muscat, you've got some Barbera, some Sangiovese, some Cab, some Zin, some Syrah.
In all honesty, there are only about 3 or 4 varieties of Vitis vinifera that are produced commercially around the world that I don't like. But I came to California to make Cabernet. Cabernet is my flagship. It is still our most, we make more Cabernet, I think close to 10,000. Our total production has been right around 28,000. We say we're a 30,000 case winery, but we've never made 30,000 cases.
Just factor up or just lie, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the winery is capable of doing 30,000. The problem is every time you bring things in and you're doing your final blends, there's always something left over. And it was the leftover wine that made Full Bore Red. That's how Full Bore Red evolved. It's the leftovers. But
don't say that, because I'm about to try it. You guys sent me a bottle, so let's talk about Full Bore. So so we got the Full Bore Red right here.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about it. What's the blend? I take it's the flagship.
It is a different blend every year. There's almost always some Cabernet based in it, because that's what we make the most of. And with rare exception, but it could be Barbera, Sangiovese, Syrah, Tinta Madeira, Tinta Cal, Susano, Zinfandel.
Just make up winery. We just make up varietals we won't know.
Yeah, no. What it is it is at when we finish making our blends for our other wines. I used to sell what was left over for like $1 a gallon as bulk wine, and that someone would buy it and send a tank truck over, and we'd pump it in. And I was getting $1 a gallon. Now this is barrel finished wine. Every drop of it is aged in barrel down in my tunnels, 35 foot under the winery. And I'm getting $1. It is stupid. So we said, let's take this stuff, see what we can do. And we sat down, this was 12, 15 years ago. And we made pretty damn good wine. Plus, it was a wine that was relatively inexpensive. We got it by a lot of wine by the glass programs with it. And it's the only wine we make that is not vintage dated, because every year you'll have, 6 or 7 wines from 2018, but the Cabernet will be from a year earlier because it's in the barrel longer. So it's 2017. So we couldn't put a vintage date on it. So that's why it doesn't have a vintage date, but it's all barrel finished wines that are just don't fit into, and we're a small enough winery that we can't really, I'm not going to force, we try, even after 40 some years here, I really try to make sure that we're making the best wine we can. I've had, 3 mentors in my life, Joe Paterno and Robert Mondavi, and then somebody you wouldn't understand or wouldn't know. But I remember Mr. Mondavi sitting with him at his place, and people were just starting to charge for tastings in Napa. And it was like $5 or $10. And I remember, and I was thinking, hey, what do you think? I mean, we're just giving all this wine away for free. And he said, don't you ever charge for tasting. You are in the hospitality industry, and your job is to make the wine so good that you don't have to bribe people by saying, we're going to charge you $10 to taste it, but we'll kick it back if you buy a bottle. He said, you make your wines good enough that they'll buy it without being bribed. And to this day, I don't charge for tasting. Everything in here is complimentary, and I sell easily 60-65% of my wine direct to consumer right here at the tasting room.
I'm bringing my family there. We're going to be real thirsty.
Good.
Real thirsty.
Yeah, and you'll enjoy. We're also one of the last wineries that still do tours, and we do tours, vineyard, crush pad, winery cellar floor, down through the caves and back up. Takes about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Purely complimentary.
And then you get them working for about an hour and 2, and you don't pay them, right?
Exactly. Actually, there was a period where a lot of little wineries would get their friends to help them.
Yeah.
Crush. Boy, the state came down on that. That is illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in California.
Ooh.
This wine is delicious. Never had it before. I've seen it before. It's just beautiful. Blackberry, cherries, nice tannins. I'm disappointed I didn't get any food sent with these wines. What's up with that?
Oh, it doesn't travel well. I mean, pierogies and stuffed cabbage.
Is that what you drink with this? Pierogies and stuffed cabbage?
No, I'm just.
You never know.
My mother was born in Poland, and my grandparents, my father's side, are German. I'm half Polish, half German. I want to conquer the world, but I can't remember why.
Well, that would have been some pretty heated fights between your mom and dad.
Yeah, but at age 18 months, she pretty much got rid of him.
Yeah, exactly.
After I was 18 months old, I don't think I spent 48 hours with him.
Wow.
Even though he only lived about 4 miles away.
Yeah.
But he was so terrified of my mother that he stayed away.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of my friends who are Polish, their mothers are very a dominant figure. They got good. They're actually one of my buddies who might be listening, Mike Mazik. His mom, she loved boxing.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was
Well,
Polish
hey,
lady too.
let me tell you, I got my size from my mother. I said she was born in Poland, and she never hit anybody with an open hand. I mean, when my mother hit you, it was a fist. So, and she knocked me out once, hit me right. I was about maybe 10, 11 years old. I don't know what I had done, but man, she hauled off and hit me. I was in the kitchen, and I went down for the count.
I wonder if Joe Paterno was scared of her.
Joe wasn't scared for a skinny Italian man. He wasn't scared of much.
Yeah.
Joe Paterno, it took me, I was 35 years old, I think, plus or minus, before I really appreciated what Joe Paterno did for me. I mean, he was not warm and fuzzy on the playing field, but off the field, and he wasn't even warm and fuzzy then, but he would say a lot of things. And you're going, oh, come on, I'm 19, I'm 20, hey, he says, you get your damn degree, you study. I went to school to play football and hang out with the sorority suites. He insisted that I get an education.
Yeah. What is the one, like I played collegiate sports like yourself. What is the one thing saying that you kind of maybe repeat or hear in your mind once in a while that he said to you? What's the best advice he gave you, I guess?
Boy, I can't put it down to a single thing, but Joe Paterno was very, very adamant that you were responsible, you grew up, we were getting a free education for playing a game that we loved. I would have played without getting, I just loved playing football. But he said, you have an obligation to give back, to be an upstanding person. Joe Paterno died owning the same house he owned when I played for him. It was a nothing 3-bedroom, 2-bath little ranch house on a cul-de-sac about 3 blocks off campus. And this guy's giving millions of dollars back to the university and doing all sorts of stuff. And if I showed you Joe's house, it was like 25 foot off the road, and it was a nothing house. And he lived the life that he talked. He walked the walk. And like I said, it took me a while to really appreciate him.
Yeah.
Where Mr. Mondavi, man, I from day one, I was able to glom onto and understand and appreciate, because I was a little older and
right.
a little bit more mature.
Why does everybody call him Mr. Mondavi? We only did a little bit for the wine industry in California. Everybody I've ever met, it doesn't matter. Like I don't know if you know the Laird family. He was very instrumental in the Laird family's successes, and now they own the most vineyards in all of Napa. And Rebecca, who I know and is a good personal friend, she's still to this day Mr. Mondavi, and like probably like yourself, her dad was pretty good friends with him, and to this day she'll call him Mr. Mondavi. There's so much respect that man did, not only for Napa, but California and America, and the world.
Mr. Mondavi, almost, and I mean this in the most complimentary sense, he was the P.T. Barnum of our industry. He drug the California wine industry into the 21st century almost single-handedly. He never made wine. If you asked 1,000 people who was California's greatest winemaker, almost everybody would say Mr. Mondavi, but he never made wine. He was the showman. He was the guy that promoted. And I remember him saying, because he used to promote Napa Valley. Oh my, I mean, he promoted Napa and California wines generally as much as for every time he said Robert Mondavi Winery, he would say Napa Valley or he would say California. And he recognized that, it's the old cliche, rising water lifts all boats.
Mm-hmm.
And I've followed the same philosophy here in Paso. I mean, I promoted Paso Robles as much as I ever promoted Eberle Winery.
Yeah.
Because if Paso Robles didn't succeed, Eberle Winery wasn't going to succeed.
Isn't it kind of like what's good for the goose is good for the hen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you see that with, and you don't need to tell me who, actually, you know what? Let's go to this. Let's just touch on football, then we'll go to this one. What is the one vintner or winery you'd love to tackle?
The one, I remember Floyd Little making a fool out of me. I'd love to have another chance at him, but he died. Winery, I've got so many wineries, particularly from the 70s and 80s, and great winemaking people in my class, Mary Edwards and Steve McRosty, Randy Dunn, I think, is one of the most, I mean, he makes some of the most spectacular wines, and I don't think he's ever quite gotten the credit that he deserves.
We actually had Mike Dunn on the podcast last year, and it was funny. He's like, there goes my dad. Like Randy just went for a random walk behind the camera. You just see Randy walking, just got 2 fixed knees or something like that. But that place is spectacular.
Oh, he and I have been friends since the 70s, and we didn't go to school together, but I met him through other winemakers, and we actually, I've made wine. Randy Dunn and I made a wine together because we were both pilots. We flew planes, and we called it Dos Aviators. And I made a wine with Heidi Peterson. We called it Sibling Rivalry because one time down at the LA County Fair judging wines, you get up and you introduce yourself, and Dick Peterson was there with Heidi, and they got up and introduced themselves, and I stood up and I said, "Hey, I'm Gary Eberle. I'm Dick Peterson's illegitimate but very handsome son." So Heidi started calling me bro. And a couple of years after that, we did a blend called Sibling Rivalry, 2 Napa Cabernet and an Eberle Cabernet. And Jim Clendenin and I did blends together. I mean, a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We had, not to name drop again, we had Chelsea Barrett on the podcast, which is Heidi and Bo's, I think, youngest. Is she she's older?
Yes.
She's younger. There's 2 girls. Is she the oldest or the youngest?
Heidi?
No, Chelsea.
Heidi's the oldest of Dick's daughters.
Right, but Chelsea, their daughter, I don't know if she's the oldest or youngest. They have 2 girls.
I don't know.
So we had her, and I flat out asked Chelsea, I said, who's the best winemaker in your family? And she didn't want to answer it. I'm like, I think she even said my dad's not a winemaker. No, her other grandfather, not Dick, Mr. Barrett, he wasn't a winemaker. I think she said that, but she wouldn't answer the question.
Well, it's hard because you got,
I know.
I think they're both very accomplished. Heidi, Dick really set her up with Screaming Eagle. Because Dick Peterson, and to me, that's California's winemaker emeritus right now. I have nothing but there's a guy you need to interview. Wow. He's really special in our industry.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. So full bore, delicious. Let's go to the we talk a little more. Let's talk about the 2018 Cabernet Sauvignon.
Now that's our VS Cabernet. That is a wine that I started making about 15. Our estate Cabernet is our flagship. That's my. If you come to my winery, afternoon, you'll find me drinking estate Cabernet. The Vineyard Select was a wine about 15 years ago. We were very, very successful on off-premise wines, and but we were having trouble getting in. We still weren't shishi. Paso Robles wasn't quite what it is today. And I said, I need a wine that I can sell primarily on premise, get it on the back bar, get it in a wine that had a price and the kind of softness that, it was. I tried to make the wine Merlot wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was originally just made for restaurants, but unfortunately, the minute it just hit and skyrocketed, and it is now our largest production, the VS Cab, and it will have some estate wine in it, but for the most part, it's wine that we buy from other growers. But it's a wine by the glass, sort of something you can have a glass of while you're waiting for your table at a restaurant, or a little softer Cabernet, a wine that goes down a little easier if you're at a table with 4 people and everybody's having 4 different things. It's a little bit more versatile. It's not a classic California Cabernet.
No, it's good though. What are you drinking?
I just had some Viognier because I had to wash down 5 Advil.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Usually when I have Advil, I drink it with water, but I get some people like yourself drink it with Viognier.
No, I find that a little bit of Viognier accelerates the effect. But don't ever play football. The knees. No.
I played basketball and tennis. I know how it works. So this cab is delicious. What if you notice because I've had a couple other Paso producers on the show, and you would know all of them probably personally very well, or you hate some, maybe one of them you want to tackle or two. What have you noticed, since you were pretty much one of the first people, to kind of put Paso on the map? What have you noticed since kind of the late 70s, early 80s to now? There's a lot more wineries.
When I came down here, when I built the Estrella, when I came to Paso, there were 3 wineries, and they had all been here since Prohibition. And I built the Estrella. We were the 5th winery in Paso. HMR came in did 1 year ahead of us. I am now, Eberle Winery is the single oldest winery under the same ownership in Paso Robles. And I don't consider anybody in this industry in Paso Robles my competition. My competition is I think more French and Italian than California.
Yeah.
We stick together pretty well. As far as, I can't think of, I'll take that back. I can only think of one person in this industry in Paso Robles out of 1,000 that I would love to tackle real hard. Wine people tend to be very social. I think, I always say, if you take all of the Americans and you put them in a bell curve and you split it down the middle, police deal from the middle down. In our industry, we deal from the middle up. I'm in my winery every day. I'm not the winemaker anymore, but I'm every day, and I do what Mr. Mondavi used to do. I sit out in front of my winery about 1:30 or so, and I just talk to people, try to make them laugh. All these different things that I've learned from him. And it's not a day that goes by I don't channel Mr. Mondavi.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very fortunate. There are 3 major awards in my industry: the California Lifetime Achievement Award, the Mondavi Wine, Food, and Hospitality Award, and the Wine Enthusiast Winery Legend Award.
And you didn't have to pay for that one with the Wine Enthusiast. If it was Wine Spectator, you might have had to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, at 28,000 cases, my entire budget for marketing would be one page in the Spectator or the Enthusiast. We don't advertise.
Yeah.
And we don't have to, because we're selling everything. We don't have a single wine that we have a 12-month supply of.
You better not say that to your distributors.
I'll tell you what, I've got markets, I got states that are begging us. We're in 28 states in 3 countries in Europe. And we got markets in the United States, people that are begging us. And the only way we can give them wine is if we would steal it from an existing wholesaler. And, I've got relationships that go back wholesale, 30, 35 years. I'm not about to break that up.
Yeah. That's impressive. It seems like you've done some pretty decent things.
Cute too.
What's that?
I'm cute too. I'm one of probably California's best looking winemakers.
Well, everybody's got an opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So since we're talking about your good looks, so where do you come up with the boar? Because the boar is not a pretty animal.
No.
Hardworking.
Like I said, my mother's born in Poland. My grandparents, my father's side, from Germany, Ludwigsburg, down near Stuttgart, and that is the Black Forest area, the Schwaben area, Bavarian area, and in Low German, Farmer German, and Eber, E-B-E-R, is the wild boar, the wild Russian boar. And the LE in Schwaben is an affectionate or diminutive. So I am the little boar, the young boar, the son of the boar. And that's what Eberle means. And when I did my label, another thing I learned from Mr. Mondavi, I gave a graduate student in Cal Poly, the local university, a graphic arts student, $75 to design my label. And I said, I wanted something that was, sort of distinctive. I think I want a boar on the label, and boom, boom, and I've had a lot of people over the years say, man, when California was doing all pastels and die cut labels and all this stuff, and I had people say, man, your label is dated. It's not. And then I go back to Mr. Mondavi. Mr. Mondavi said, I don't care if you got the ugliest label in the world. Once you've introduced it to people, don't ever change it. And if you look, until Mr. Mondavi died, that label of his stayed the same. And my label is the same. And it's just, I don't think it's pretty, but I don't think it's bad. It says what it needs to say. Eberle, the vintage, and it's and like I said, we sell so much of our wine here at the tasting room.
Yeah.
That everybody. We've got two. The boar that's in the straw market in Florence.
Okay.
I know you've seen it, maybe in the life, or you've seen it in the movie Hannibal. We have the 93rd casting of it right at the front door, and then we've got a big bronze or a big steel sculpture of a boar coming up the driveway. Yeah, that's as close as I come to art.
Yeah.
Now I'm an opera lover, but art, I like Cezanne, Van Gogh, Matisse.
Can you sing opera?
No, I wish. That's probably the single thing that people say. What's the one thing you would like to do? I say, I wish I could sing, and I can't. My dogs sing. My dogs sing beautifully. I've got the 2 black standard poodles always running around.
They sing. What do they sing? They don't sing. Come on. I guess if you drink enough, they sing, right?
Let me see if they're both here. In just a minute, I'll let you listen to them sing.
This could be a first on the podcast.
It's funny. And they don't sing to everything, but there are pieces of music that set them off.
Really?
Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto, the introduction to Cavalleria, Mike Post's lead into Law and Order. When I'm at home,
great show.
They go crazy. People out on the deck, if they start singing Happy Birthday, the dogs have to join in.
I don't believe this. This is hilarious.
Oh, wait a second. Let me just 1 second. I gotta.
This is the first, folks, on the Cork and Taylor Wine Podcast. We hear dogs singing.
Barbera and get him in here.
Barbera. You named your dog Barbera?
I have had Canelli, Chardonnay, Zinfandel, Cabernet, Roussanne.
For dogs?
Yeah. And now I have
Barbera.
And Barbera. Sanjo and Barbera.
You don't call her Barbera, Barbara?
I know, and it's a boy.
Well,
but he's been to Sweden.
Gary, it's 2022. Oh, now you're drinking red. What are you drinking now?
I'm drinking the Cabernet that you just said.
That's beautiful. It's a very nice cab. It's very affordable too.
Such a nice, soft Cabernet that it's hard. If you don't, like I said, it's the wine that Merlot wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, close the door.
All right, let's hear this.
Okay.
This could be a first here. Oh, there's one. Is that Barbera or is that Sangiovese?
This is Barbera. Okay, it's good. It's good.
I was damn barking.
I'm telling you, there are about 8 pieces of music that.
That's awesome.
I could put, so many different things on, and nothing.
Oh.
Certain pieces of music that come on. Some are vocal, some are modern, some are purely instrumental.
Yeah.
I have strange poodles.
Yes. You've got good wine though, and you got a great story. So Gary, we're gonna stick around with us. You're gonna stay with us. We're gonna do a little fun section, a little sip and spit section on our Patreon site. Support us there. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Gary, thanks for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and you're gonna stick with us. We're gonna have some fun. And to all the people listening, to the 4 people and the singing dogs, keep drinking the good stuff.